lane, right? We all talk about this like, where's the lane? Is it using hoof testers? Is that a diagnostic tool? If I pull out a 2-degree wedge pad, what do we do with that? Where is my lane? What is if I don't draw blood, is that okay? Is it everything below the hairline on the coronary band? That's my domain. I don't believe any of those things to be true. But what does the law say about this? So every year, or every couple of years, the AVMA, the American Veterinary Medical Association, which is a veterinary group, right? It's not a government group, it's a veterinary group. I shouldn't say much different than the AFA or other farrier groups, proposes a Model Veterinary Practice Act. And what they're doing is proposing so that each state can adopt that language. They're using suggested language for adopting these rules to make this a bit of a universal so that they can advance what they think the rules should be. And they suggest in this an exemption for farriers, right? So their exemption states in here, any individual lawfully engaged in the profession of farriery. Well, that's great. That means that what we're doing is great, but what is farriery and where is that line? It really doesn't qualify it, but I would say the application of different, orthotics, whether we're talking about wedge pads or different shoes, I would say that would give us an exemption that would allow that. But that's not true in every state. So for instance, in the state of New Jersey, not only do they not have this exemption, but they actually have wording in here that states that the application of any device to treat lameness is the domain of the veterinarian. Well, that sounds an awful lot like what we do, right? I mean, we're applying a horseshoe, and a lot of times we're doing it either to prevent or to treat lameness. And that puts us in a very awkward position. So years ago, I was doing a lecture at the Hambletonian, and I was asked to do some demonstrations on quarter crack repair. And I called the New Jersey Board of Veterinary Medicine, and I said, hey, if I'm doing this on live horses, is this okay? And they said, well, I don't know. Sounds like you're treating stuff. That sounds like it should require a veterinarian. Well, now I've been working at vet practices for the last 20-some years. I've never once watched a veterinarian repair a quarter crack. Those cases all come directly into me. So what do I do about that? I asked them the question, how would you like me to handle that? I said, because even the question of applying a shoe seems like a problem. I'm turning myself in. I would like you to prosecute me for this because I think we need answers. And they said, oh no, that's not how it works. We decide who to prosecute and when. I said, well then what should I do? Because I'm trying to be a good person, I'm trying to be a good farrier, I want to be an upstanding person. They said, hire a constitutional attorney and they can tell us, if that's legal. And I said, well, is that binding? Are you going to recognize that? They said, no, we decide that too, but that'll make you feel better. So my problem with this is when we say stay in our lane, ultimately what this comes down to is, where is our lane? I don't know. And I think in this case, I don't know that we have a workforce that can do what we do, especially in places like New Jersey. I don't think we have the ability to work without farriers, but technically, we don't even have questions about saying if shoeing a horse is a legal practice, much less if all the things that we talk about of where we draw the line and staying in your lane begin. And I find that to be very frustrating. I think at the end of the day, what I'm left with is using my own moral compass and my own sense of what's right and wrong, and that makes me uncomfortable, but I don't have any other way to suggest to you to do this. I work with people and if I hear a lot of complaints, Pat's stepping out of line, we go have conversations about this. But I think a lot of this is really something that gets answered on a one-by-one basis. I would much rather be the case study for this. If we're going to talk about whether or not it's a good idea for farriers to be using gait analysis, I would much rather be the guinea pig on this and be prosecuted for this as somebody that's used that information to work with veterinarians and to provide a better level of understanding rather than waiting for somebody, and somebody will eventually do this, using it inappropriately, calling it a lameness exam and diagnosing things by using it. I would like for us to be able to be trusted to use this information correctly, and I'm afraid that what's going to happen is we're going to use it inappropriately and find that some of these things are taken away.